Good afternoon, dear colleagues. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سعيدة جدا بتقديم مداخلة زميلي الأستاذ الدكتور مختار بن هندة. أنا ليليا شنيتي بالقاضي، أستاذة محاضرة في الإعلامية من جامعة سوسة، وأشكر جزيل الشكر صديقتي غادة الخياط لإتاحة الفرصة أن إني نقوم بالموديريشن للويبينار هذا. أول حاجة لو تسمحوا باش نقدم زميلي مختار بن هندة. مختار لو تسمح أنا باش نقدمك بالعربية، ولو أنت عايز تزيد يعني بعض المعلومات تتفضل. زميلي وصديقي مختار بن هندة هو أستاذ للتعليم العالي بجامعة منوبة في تونس، وهو ملحق منذ سنة 2005 بجامعة بوردو بفرنسا كمدرس وباحث في علوم المعلومات والاتصال، وهو أيضا عضو في كرسي اليونسكو بجامعة باريس 8 وفي شبكة أوربيكام لكراسي اليونسكو في مجال الاتصال. هو خبير لدى وكالة الجامعات الفرنكوفونية منذ أكثر من عقدين للتدريب على تقنيات المعلومات والاتصال والتعليم الإلكتروني، وهو أيضا خبير دولي منذ 2004 داخل المنظمة الدولية للمواصفات إيزو، حيث ينسق إحدى مجموعات العمل التابعة للجنة الفرعية 36 المسؤولة عن توحيد تقنيات التعليم الإلكتروني. شكرا جزيلا صديقي مختار لموافقتك للتدخل في هذا في رمضان جانا، ولك الكلمة.
شكرا صديقتي وزميلتي على هذا التقديم، أولا على الاستضافة للمداخلة في هذه المناسبة العلمية الهامة، كما أشكر زميلتي وصديقتي غادة على استدعائي لهذه المشاركة التي كما قلت أنني سأقوم بها باللغة الفرنسية بالإنجليزية. يعني هو مزيج وخليط بين اللغات، نظرا لأنه اللغة الأصلية هي اللغة العربية، لكن أنا إطار العمل متاعي في فرنسا بحيث أستعمل اللغة الفرنسية، لكن في عملي الدولي على مستوى يعني المنظمة الدولية للمواصفات أستعمل اللغة الإنجليزية، وبالتالي خيرت أني أقوم بالمداخلة باللغة الإنجليزية نظرا لأن الموضوع في حد ذاته أنه تقني وبعض الشيء، ولذلك المصطلحات أجد بعض السهولة باستعمالها باللغة الإنجليزية أو الفرنسوية أكثر من اللغة العربية. كما نقول في تونس صحة شربتكم للجميع. أرجو لكم رمضان مبارك وعيد سعيد. Well, I go directly to my presentation, and I think you introduced me as much more than I was expecting to do. So I think this aspect is already done. Thank you very much for this kind of presentation of my humble person. And I go directly to the presentation, which was, we agreed on the fact to present something concerning methodology for creating shareable learning scenarios and application on SDG 5 concerning gender. In fact, it is a small experiment or experience that we are dealing right now since some months now within a special context in French-speaking countries. And it deals, of course, of setting up and producing some kind of a process to produce shareable learning contents. And we focused on scenarios, educational scenarios, because we thought it is something important for educators, tutors, to produce something convergent, interoperable, that could help anybody who would like to teach SDG and SDG 5 mainly. So for that, I start with presenting the context in which this experience is conducted right now. We are on the way to finish that, I think, in 2 weeks, with delivering certificates and finalizing the project. Well, the context is it is an initiative taken by OEF, which is the organization, the International Organization of Francophonie, the French-speaking countries. Of course, I mean, OEF has a lot of institutions and structures among which IFEF, which is the Institute of Francophonie for Education and Training. So this institution is specialized in education and training, and OEF, since 2018, during the conference of heads of state and governments of countries having French in common that was held in Yerevan in Armenia in October 2018, they took a resolution concerning the gender equality. And from that moment, OEF, throughout IFEF, decided to set up a strategy for promoting the gender equality rights and empowerment of women and girls. So it became a very central topic of big interest for OEF, for IFEF, and they worked around that. And the OEF mandated IFEF to develop a work strategy about that. For that, IFEF in its work plan decided to put up a strategy, a twofold work plan based on two key issues. The first is training educators, to train them on the way how to produce educational scenarios, educational resources in general, but especially educational scenarios related with gender equality. And the objective for that is to put into practice everything that is learned during a training that was prepared for training these educators on the concept of gender equality and on the concept of producing scenarios for teaching the concept. So the training is, the objective of training is, of course, to put in practice all the concepts and new definitions that the educators learn during this training and to produce something concrete, which are educational resources. And of course, I mean, it's a technical objective in itself, but also it is something very, very cultural, in the meaning that educators today need also to acquire and to adopt the equality concept itself in their practice, and they have also to transmit that for their students, pupils at school. So it's at the same time a technical process, but also something conceptual, cultural, that educators need to acquire and to learn about. So the training that was defined for educators from different countries, French-speaking countries, in Africa, even in other countries, is of course to explain the concepts. And afterward, after presenting the definition of the concepts, is to put the trainers in situations where they are required to produce something concrete, the scenarios and the open educational resources. The second objective is producing open educational resources in general, not only scenarios, but also different kinds of open educational resources that are supposed to be hosted on the Relief website. IFEF has developed a website. It's a nowhere container repository just to host all new produced resources concerning the gender equality and the SDG number 5. So it is a kind of specialized repository for educational resources on this issue, because the idea started from the moment when almost general international repositories are multidisciplinary. So we have open educational resources dealing with different subjects and topics. So the idea, I mean, it's in the IFEF mission, is one of its missions is to create a repository only dedicated to the SDG 5, just to produce and collect resources concerning gender equality. And for that, there's a repository has been created, and now it starts to contain a considerable amount of resources addressed to all educators, teachers in French-speaking countries who would like to teach the concept in itself. So they have already resources ready, and I'm going to talk about this kind of resources that are prepared to be helpful for educators to teach the gender equality using very special, very precise scenarios and strategy and pedagogy for that. So the two aspects are the training and the OER production. So the training, we started the training of 2 months during, and it is hosted online. Educators get subscribed to the course, and it is composed of 4 modules. The first one is introducing the concept, the equality, men and women. I mean, because it looks for many people that the concept is obvious, but it is throughout the education and the exercise and I mean, we discovered that the concept is not as obvious as it is, and many people have some confusion concerning the concept of equality. And throughout the courses, the exercises, we try to explain, I mean, the different approach, the different aspects that this concept may have. So we ask very few questions. For example, why promoting equality at school? So we go throughout this notion and we try to analyze this, to have feedback from the educators who participate to the course, and just to rectify, I mean, the concept of that. I mean, this is a first step to prepare the educators to acquire the concept in itself, so that when they start to produce resources, they already have the concept and they are they master the concept in itself, and they can produce, and this will impact, of course, on the quality of the resources they are producing. The second, another issue is the equality, men, women, the state of art. We start from a situation, we ask the question, why promoting equality at school? And this will help us to go to the second model, which is to discover, study, analyze, and criticize the stereotypes that exist in the society today concerning men and women, the question of gender, and so on. So it is a very interesting moment when we discuss with educators about their own understanding and definition of equality. And throughout, we discover a lot of preconceptions and stereotypes that exist. Much of them are wrong. And that was an opportunity to change, to try to discuss and just to explain exactly what are the meaning of equality, and just to destruct some stereotypes and construct new ones based on genuine concepts and definitions. The module 3 is equality in class. So we come back to the equality in class. I mean, this is also a core question, because we are training educators to understand the way how they handle the equality when they deal with their pupils and students and the learners. At level of the discourse, how they address them, how do they behave with them, and either directly in their daily life, or throughout the exercises and the resources they distribute for the learners. It's important that in the document that we distribute for our learners, this concept should be very carefully treated, because sometimes we are not aware of that, but we distribute resources for our students, for our learners, but these contents contain wrong concepts and a lot of wrong stereotypes. So it's very, very important when we are addressing pupils, learners, we take care of how we express with them, and what kind of resources we distribute to them. And at the end, of course, we had this kind of a brainstorming of module 4, and we discussed again from the beginning at the end what changes we observe and what they themselves observe concerning their awareness of gender equality. And that was really very interesting, because we saw that there was a shift from a beginning, a state of art at the beginning, and at the end, when they went through all the modules, how many of them changed their conception, changed their understanding, and the way how they understand gender equality. So once this course was finished, of course, we submitted the kind of activity of assessment activity for those who follow the training, and we asked for them to produce resources, and throughout these resources, they try to apply the concept of gender equality they learned throughout the course. So they produce some resources, they put online, and we evaluate that. we selected from that some interesting products, which we evaluate through some quality indicators. And we selected these people to go for a next step, which is producing some resources that will be submitted for evaluation to get an award. And this is a kind of attributing some awards for quality resources that the students are supposed to produce. So we go here in the next step. After the training, we went through a workshop for producing gender equality open educational resources, but from the kind of scenarios, educational scenarios. And this is another step that we structured around some kind of techniques, some kind of tools and instruments that we submitted for educators themselves to be trained on the way how do they produce educational scenarios concerning gender equality. For that, we first developed a form, a standard form, because after all, we would like that the scenarios that the educators will produce will be harmonized. They will follow a certain kind of standardized prototype, and all the educators will produce almost the same thing, but which will be different is the content. But the form, we worked around a template, a standardized template that everybody will be using to fulfill data that will create the form that will be hosted on the Relief website. The main objective is that to produce this kind of open educational resources that somebody else one day will be using that to teach the concept of gender equality. So the template is structured in 3 sections. The first one is a metadata section, which describes the resource in itself, following for that international standards like Doblancourt. And this is very important because, as I said at the beginning, the resource will be hosted in a repository. And as you see, a repository is, of course, if you would like to retrieve any kind of resource, you have to search for that. And we know that all search engines work on metadata. That means any resource which is hosted on a server should be indexed, referenced by keywords, so that when you make research, this resource will be retrieved throughout a searching operation. So for that, it's very important to use almost the same metadata so that we create what we call interoperability. So all the resources will be indexed, referenced with the same kind of metadata. And that's why we propose a set of fields of this description, what we call metadata, so that everybody will describe his resources using all these fields. And the content of each field of the metadata, some are open. Everyone will use, for example, the title that he produces for his resource, but some fields are controlled vocabulary. For example, to use keywords or to indicate the theme or the topic to which belong the resource he creates. We propose a set of topics or set of keywords, and we recommend for developers of the scenario to use this kind of words. This will optimize the fact that this resource will be retrieved throughout a searching process. So this is a very technical aspect that is addressed to the server, to the online repository, because the metadata are oriented to the repository to be indexed and to ease the operation of research and retrieving resources. The other 2 parts are didactic, are pedagogic. There was a part where we have, as a scenario producer, to write all what we want the educator to do once he's in class in front of his learners. So since it is a resource that will be used by a tutor, that means a person who is not the creator of the resource, we have to give him all the details, how he as educator has to behave, and what he's supposed to provide for the learners, and how he's supposed to address them. to ask them for activities and so on. So the second part of the form is the tutor's cheat section. That means in this part, we'll indicate to the educator what kind of activity he's supposed to do, what are the material he is supposed to distribute to the learners, and what kind of exercise he's supposed to provide for the educators. So this part is subdivided in two sections. A condensed step-based form is a small chart because the session is sequenced in different sequences. If each sequence, I'll show you a small example. You can see it on the right of the screen, 2.1, which is the scenario, which means that the course is subdivided in step 1, 2, 3, 4, and steps. And every step, there are activities concerning the teaching, the educator, and other activities concerning the student, what everyone is supposed to do. And the fourth column is what are the tools, the methods, and the means that we are using for this activity in the lesson or in the course, in the scenario. So this is an overview of the scenario, how is this subdivided. The other part of the teacher's sheet section, it's 2.2, it's the development of these different steps. So we take the step 1, for example, and we indicate to the educator throughout the template, throughout the form, what he is supposed to do as material, as activity, as exercise he's supposed to do to the learners, and the answers he's supposed to expect from the learners. So we give him all the material he needs to teach this lesson. So we have the different kinds of material that he's supposed to do for every step. So it could be a bit long. That depends on the material that he is supposed to use, text, videos, photos, images, and around which he is supposed to ask questions and to test the knowledge of the learner, asking questions. And in the form, we are, as conceiver of this scenario, we are supposed to give him the answers that he's expecting from the learner. The third part of the form is the learner's sheet section, because as a resource, the learner also has to have something between his hands, because sometimes we ask the learner to do some homework. He will be working at home, so he has to have something in front of him. And what is in front of him is something of a mirror of the tutor sheet, but without the instructions that we address to the learner, to the educator. The learner will have only the content material, the text that he has to study, the video that he has to see, the photo that he has to analyze, and the questions related with this resource. Only that. And the quiz, the questions or the quizzes or any activity that you require from him. So this is the general structure of the scenario. The scenario is composed of 3 parts: metadata, tutor's sheet section, learner's sheet section, and they constitute a unity, a whole thing, which is a scenario in which we have almost all details concerning the pedagogical activity in the classroom when the teacher or the educator is supposed to teach a concept like gender equality. So for that, we produced a template. This one, it's an empty one. And we also created a user guide, a tutorial that we distribute for the educators who participate in the training, in which we explain the template step by step, element by element, and we analyze exactly what we mean by this element, and we give examples, and we give details. For example, as you see here, for the first segment of the metadata, in front of each metadata, we explain what we mean by title, what we mean by domain, what we mean by field. Here, for example, it's a controlled vocabulary. And when the educator is supposed to fulfill this field indicating the topic, he has to choose among all the topics that we propose to him. This is a kind of harmonizing the way we input metadata, because this will be interesting to classify and to organize the resources on the relief repository. We can extract, for example, all the scenarios dealing with women's rights, for example, or with equality or with parity. So we know that over there on the repository, there are some resources that were indexed at level of theme by equity. So when we search equity, this resource would be retrieved. So this is a kind of converging, I mean, the way how the resources are referenced. So we can easily handle the repository and the resources that are hosted. So the metadata specifications, I mean, during the course, we go through that and we explain what are metadata, what are the specifications that we recommend, and how they should handle these aspects. For the tutor sections content, also the other part, we explain what's the scenario segmentation for the small part, the first part. We indicate also the didactic segments development, and also we detail the part concerning the learner section. So all these are detailed in the user guide and the tutorial that we provide for learners. And here I just show in detail, I mean, these 3 sections, how we explain that. For metadata, for example, we start showing the metadata used by the website Relief. So this is the metadata section. The first section we explain, I mean, the metadata that are used by Relief website, as you see on the screen. Here, for example, for any kind, these are the metadata: level, format, type, domain, language. And when we click on any category of metadata, we have the development. For example, for the level, all educators in this field, they should choose one educational level: primary, secondary, professional, scholar, university, or pre-scholar. When you click on type, for example, we have this kind of variable, so we have to choose one of them. So this is the metadata that Relief is using. So we explain that why we propose to them to use a set of metadata, a special set of metadata, because it is conformant with what Relief is using. And the controlled vocabulary is, as I said, it's very interesting. Is essentially here, for example, in some fields, we impose that they put one of these controlled vocabulary that we propose. Like for type also, we have 5 or different types of resources, and we recommend that they use one of these kinds of types. But for instance, if it comes to the title, it's up to them. It's open. We don't impose any kind of title because that depends on the resource. So this technique of using standardized metadata will ease searching and retrieval of open educational resources. And if we put these resources from Relief repository in a broader network with other repository dealing with open educational resources, this will guarantee a sort of interoperability between the repository of Relief and international other repositories from the moment they use the same standards almost, or they are similar standards that they can cooperate and create a kind of interoperability level between different educational resource repositories. This is technically very important to identify, to find open educational resources elsewhere in the world in different repositories. Well, I come to the first section, the tutorial section content in the scenario. And this section, as I said, is subdivided in two aspects. The first one is a scenario segmentation form, which tells that the course is subdivided in different steps or levels or units or whatever you call them. So here I take an example of step 3. There was step 2, step 1, step 4, and so on. And each step, you have just to indicate the number of the step, the title of the step, or the level, or the moment, how long it lasts, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, that depends on the time you have. In the second column, you explain what the teacher or the educator is supposed to do. Here, for example, at this level, he's supposed to explain for example, we are dealing with the appropriate call formulas, how you address a person, a man, a woman, a girl, a boy, an elder person, etc., etc. This is a kind of course that we can train young people, how to use the appropriate form to address to different persons according to the relation he has with them. So teacher explains the polite form of calls. So he will explain for that using any kind of content or any kind of pedagogy that he finds suitable for this situation. And the other activity, he engaged students in this at this level. The students, they know the profile formulas. The teacher explained, they take note. The teacher engaged students, so they simulate call politics situation in a kind of a role play. They simulate a situation when they address to each other, and they use the appropriate forms. So this is a condensed form to explain to the tutor who will find this scenario, starting from the idea that he did not contribute to the conception of the scenario. So we have to provide him all the details. So he knows that at this level, he's going to deal with that. This is what he's expected to do. This is what the students or the learners are supposed to do. And this is the means, the tools that he has to practice and to use to realize this step. So this is an overview, general one. So we'll have a chart with step 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have just the key elements of the scenario. But the second part, the didactic segment development, that means we take again every step and we develop that precisely, and we go for each step, we give the statement to tutors and content material. That means the tutor that is going to use the scenario has to have a primary material. The primary material is the text he is be using, the video that he will be he will use as a support to teach the concept, a photo, anything else that he has to distribute to the learners or to show to them and to constitute the basis for the course concerning the concept he is dealing with. So we provide the teacher which material he is supposing to do, and we also write to him the work instructions he has to address to the learners, what he's expected to ask the learners to do. So we have that also we have to write it. And when we provide the educators with the raw material that he's supposed to do, we tell him what kind of instruction he's supposed to address and to send to the learners. We also provide him answers and corrections of the instructions that he's supposed to address to the learners. Because since he did not develop the resource, he also has to know what is the answer you as conceiver had provided for this kind of exercise, so you insert a new scenario. So this is the part of the tutor section content. An abstraction of the steps. This is segmentation to have an overview of the progression of the lesson, and you detail every step so that the educator or the tutor, once he will be using your scenario, he knows exactly what he's supposed to do and what he's expecting from the learners too. And of course, the learners section, we just give to the learners the instructions and the content material. We don't give them the answer and the correction. This will be they provide that during the session, and this will be evaluated by the educator. So here I just have an example. In the learners section, we have the step 3. We have an exercise, for example. We said that we have the statement to tutor and content material. So this is in black the statement to the tutor who is supposed to use my scenario. I tell him, explain the polite forms of call to learners and distribute to them the following table to complete. So the tutor who is reading my scenario knows exactly what he's supposed to do. But I put in different characters in italic or another color what or how he's supposed to address to the learners, because he's in a classroom, so he addresses his pupil. So he's supposed to talk to them and tell them, compare both columns and use arrows to associate the correct call or formula with the person concerned. So The first is my instruction as a scenario producer to the tutor who is supposing to use that. What is in green is what the tutor is supposed to tell to the learners in the moment he is teaching dealing the session. And here the exercise, he's supposed to go to the learners, and he has the answers. My work as a conceiver, I provide the answer for the teacher. He knows that he's supposed to receive that from the learners. But in the learners section, I just give the instruction. It's the same that the tutor is supposed to provide to the learners, and the exercise material without the answer. And the learner is supposed to find out the appropriate linkage between any formula and every person. And afterwards, there will be a correction, and the teacher will correct that. So this is a kind of combination that needs, however, some training and some work on experimental scenarios. And we worked about that, and we saw different kinds of quality. Some really acquire the concept and the process perfectly, and they produce very high quality scenarios. And for that, during this training also, we did not forget to come back on key concept that we consider very crucial and important for the quality of the scenarios that we ask the educators to produce. The first concept is metadata. And I explained at the beginning the importance of metadata for information system, international interoperability of repositories, to ease and to optimize the searching and the retrieval of these scenarios from repositories. And for that, we provide educators with videos from YouTube, very short videos, 4 minutes. We don't have to overload them with 1 hour, 2 hour videos. They won't read that. 4 minutes video, some very short documents like this one, just explaining what are metadata, for example. This is de Blancourt explaining what's metadata and to what they serve, the origin of that, because it's a general culture, international culture concerning the metadata reference models and schemas. And also we provide them some tools, online tools, to produce a schema, a set of metadata, where they put title, the author, keywords, description, and they produce a set of metadata, a standardized set of metadata to understand what are metadata sets and how they are very important for the information system in which they will host the scenarios they are producing. The second concept is the licenses. When we use first resources on the internet or from the internet, we have to be careful about the license and the rights we have on the resources we find online. Are we allowed to use them or not? And when I produce a scenario and I will distribute it on internet, I became an author myself. So which license am I supposed to use to distribute my own license? Do I protect my scenario with copyright? Do I put open under open license? And so we go through different concepts of open licenses: public domain, Creative Commons, open educational resource repositories, copyright and exceptions. I mean, you know that copyright is really protected, but sometimes we have some exceptions. We can use copyrighted resources, but without asking the permission from the author. So all these are different contexts and culture and concepts that a producer of a resource need know and master and really understand, because it's very crucial to know what to use, how to use, and when you produce something, you know how to distribute that, how to share that, because all is today regulated, and you have international laws and international regulations that impose for us some restrictions. And for that, I mean, international community is dealing with that in different ways. Actually, we are more or less in open education, so we are using the open things, the open different things, but the open itself, it crosses different other things which are protected. So we need to have the culture about what is open and what is restricted. And this is something that also we focused on in the training, so that the educators will produce scenarios, but which respect and will observe this kind of technical and legal aspects of the resources and scenarios that we use, we produce, and we share with others. So this is, I mean, the overview of the experiments that we are dealing right now. And well, I think if you have any question on that, I'll be more than pleased to share that with you and to provide any comments. To you, Henda. Lilia.
Thank you, Mokhtar, for this very nice presentation and this nice and innovative project. Actually, the way that you have designed all the whole process of designing these scenarios is very interesting and very innovative. So let me ask my colleagues attending this webinar if they have any questions. Do you have questions?
Hello, Lilia. Maybe I have a question.
Yes, please.
Maybe or sure.
Hello. Maybe or for sure. Hello, Lilia. Hello, Mokhtar. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lilia, for your presence and for moderating this session. And thank you very much, Mokhtar. It's always a pleasure to have you, and it's always an added value. Actually, my question would be, it was very good the way the methodology you have developed and the way you shared it, and but I would like to ask if and actually you have given the example on the relief, but I would like to ask how on the interoperability thing, how does this really integrate with other resources that we can find over the internet, and how for real that we can use it, actually designing using this approach with the appropriate metadata and so on can have us find whatever we are looking for doing the different searches and so how can you give concrete examples on this, please?
Well, interoperability is something that it's a major concern at international level on different information systems, and that it's behind anyhow the concept of metadata. Just I remind that the first initiative of metadata on internet started in 1995 with a Dublin core in the in USA in Ohio State, when the internet engineers decided to meet and to discuss about an appropriate way to harmonize the way how to describe resources on the internet. Because at that moment, searching engines start to appear, and the internet, I mean, one of the key elements is searching engines, but searching engines didn't have any kind of harmonizing all the resources on the internet. And the initiative started to produce a kind of common format to for web designers, asking them at the part of the head of the resource on internet to add a kind of set of metadata describing the resource they're producing. So they produce the Dublin core metadata schema, which is 15 fields of description of the resource. So if everybody will use this kind of schema, that means all the resources will be described using the same process and the same way. All of them will have a title, all of them will have a date, all of them will have keywords, all of them will have abstract, all of them will have right, copyright, and the license, and so on. So from the moment that the majority of resources I described using the same metadata schema, that means the engine, the searching engine, will be retrieving all the resources that are conformant with the keyword we use for research. And we know that a searching engine is in reality an algorithm that works all the time around the internet and collecting data on the internet to creating his index for searching. And all search engines have a priority for keywords, for metadata first. I mean, any word that is found in the metadata has a higher score than the same word found in a paragraph or at the end of a text. So search engines start to extract metadata to build their indexes, so that when somebody asks a search by a word and the search engine will find it from the metadata, it will be among the first one that appear in the list. That's why when you have an answer from Google, why the first is the first and the second is the second and the third is the third? This is a question that we ask all the time. I ask to my students, why do you have that? So it's because the search engine has weighed the different documents and he has found according to the weight of the keywords itself. Keywords have a different weight. Either it is in metadata, in the title, in the subtitle, in the paragraph, or at the end of the text. According to the position and other criteria, the occurrence, how many times it is repeated, and so on, it gives a score to the word. So if when you search for that, the document that contains this word, if it is in the metadata, it will be the first one. But this is for the pertinence of the research. But for the interoperability, it's important to use almost the same metadata so that all the resources produced by different people all over the world will have almost the same field: title, author, date, and so on. If we describe using the same way, but with different content, because my resource is 2008, your resource is 2013, but we have the same metadata used for describing. So this will optimize the fact that different repositories can exchange metadata, and they can exchange the resources between themselves. And there is actually, I mean, everything is automatically done. So the electronic systems will look for resources that respond to certain criteria using metadata first and try to extract, to classify, to create segments, to create subclasses, subcategories, and so on. All is done according to metadata. And that's why, I mean, we recommend that the resources should be described by metadata that are based on international standards. We have references in that. We have Dublin Core is the general reference for all resources in the world. But now in different domains, we have special metadata. Like in education, we have the LOM, learning object metadata. In the health, in the medicine, they have their own metadata. In agriculture, in every sector, they have metadata, but all of them share common metadata which come from Dublin Core. So there is a connection somewhere between all the resources described by metadata in the world, and this will create the connectivity, the interoperability between all the resources, but under condition that you, as a producer, you use the metadata. Yes. So the interoperability depends on you, on how you use the metadata and which schema you apply.
Thank you, Mokhtar. From my side, I'm really convinced that interoperability will be reached through standards. But I have a small question in the same sense that Ghada asked her question. So my question is related to the context of the deployment of these resources. I know that through metadata, you will have resources that could be shared through many frameworks, many platforms, and so on. But once these resources are deployed in various environments, in various frameworks, maybe the context will play a role. So what about taking into consideration this context? Using open education resources, we know that we will have the opportunity to adapt these resources to the various contexts. But in this type of scenarios that you have designed, was the element context taken into consideration and how it was described, if it is the case?
Well, yes, this is an important question that we discussed about that too. And that's why in the metadata, we added some elements concerning the language and the country. Implicitly, we can understand that this scenario, which describes one course, one session, concerning one subject, one topic. So the context is very precise and very limited. Limited throughout the material, the content. So it deals with really something very concrete and very special in the broad domain. That's why we have the title, we have the theme, and we have the keywords, and we have an abstract. So the tutor who finds haphazardly this scenario he has the metadata that will tell him which is the best context that is suitable for this kind of resource. And for more than that, we have the language, we have the country, and also we have the level, the educational level. It suits this kind of age. We have age and level. So we try through the metadata to translate as much as possible the context where this resources is supposed to be used. So this is, I mean, we try to go to maximum as possibility, as limits to explain and to show and to highlight the context-based criteria indicators for the resource.
Okay, thank you very much, Mokhtar, for all these details. Colleagues, do you have questions? Ghada? There's a question, I think, from Dina. Excuse me, Ghada. Dina?
Good evening.
Good evening, Dina. Go ahead.
Actually, it's not a question, but I was just asking at the beginning. Of course, I want to thank you for this beautiful workshop. And lecturers or speakers usually in Ramadan Gana ask the participants a question at the end of the workshop. It's like a kind of competition. So, Monsieur Mokhtar, pouvez-vous poser une question aux participants, s'il vous plaît?
Je n'étais pas prêt
Can you
à
ask a
ça.
question?
En fait, Mokhtar, c'est juste pour vérifier que les participants
ont bien suivi.
Justement, ont bien suivi ce que vous avez dit.
Oui. English, French, Arabic?
In English.
In English, okay.
In English,
so,
it will be fine.
Yeah,
and the first correct answer, the first correct answer is the winner. Okay, in the chat box.
I ask a question about something very, very special on which I put some, I highlight a lot.
Make it easy, please.
Okay.
Okay.
What are the two different styles you use in a scenario when you prepare the educator section for, when you prepare, I mean, your scenario? How do you present the material to the educator? I mean, how do you address the well, I don't know, maybe the difference in the way you describe the activity in the scenario for the educator who is supposing to use your scenario? There are two levels.
Yes, tutor sheet and learner sheet from Niveen.
No, these are the sheets, but when we are in the learner, in the teacher sheet part section, when you are explaining to the tutor what he's supposed to do, we have two levels of addressing of styles we have to write in that section. It's not, yeah, maybe it's not easy. But for me, it's very important when we write the trainer section, we provide him with two different kind of material. Well, in the scenario, what kind of data, of elements we provide to the tutor in the scenario? Well, let's do it easier. You are writing a scenario. What do you put in scenario for the tutor who is supposing to realize the scenario? You have three elements.
We're having answers now.
Yeah.
Check the chat, Mokhtar, and validate, please.
Just I'm looking for the chat. Where is it? I'm not used to that.
Can go back and
tu as la bulle conversation.
J'ai pas la bulle conversation.
En haut, à côté de la caméra, il y a autre, réaction, conversation. À côté de participants, on va dire.
Ah, les 3 points.
Oui.
Non.
Pas les 3 points. À côté de participants, il y a conversation.
Eh ben, je l'ai pas.
Si, normalement.
Tu peux les lire, Lilia, s'il te plaît?
Ouais, oui, vas-y, lis-le. J'ai pas conversation.
Alors, from Dr. Mona, the educator is given instruction what is requested of him or her to do, and the educator is given instruction how to ask the learner. This is the answer of Dr. Mona, and from Dr. Amnagati, I can't read it, and didactic, I think, development. These are the two answers that I got.
Can you read me again the first one?
Amnagati said also step-based form.
Okay, this is the general segmentation of the first one, which is? Can you read me again?
Dr. Mona Abdul Saoud, she said that the educator is given instruction what is requested of him and her to do, and the educator is given instruction how to ask the learner.
Exactly, this is the right answer. That means when you write a scenario.
Dr. Mona.
Bravo, bravo, Dr. Mona, bravo.
Well, I just I make a small resume of that. In a scenario, in our mind, we have three persons. The one who create the scenario, the educator who will be putting the scenario in practice, which is another person, and the learner. So we have three actors in around the scenario: the writer of the scenario, the executor of the scenario, and the learner. So, as a conceiver of scenario, a writer of scenario, from the moment that it is not the scenario to give the lesson, so he provides material for the tutor to execute the scenario. So there is a part where the conceiver of the scenario addresses to the educator to tell him what to do. So this is the first level. Display this resource, show the video, or read the text, etc. So you have to explain to the tutor, which is the second person, what to do. And the other level is to tell to that tutor how he addresses to the learner, what he's supposed to tell them. So this is, I mean, these are the three levels of the scenario. One who creates, executes the scenario, and one who receives the scenario as a learner. And from one to one, there is a way of addressing and the kind of material that goes from one to another. The scenario producer describes what the tutor is supposed to do. The tutor describes or tells to the learners what they are supposed to do. And these are the different levels of the scenario construction. I mean, at least how we produce that in our project. So the idea is at the end, somebody who didn't know how the scenario was created, when he reads the sheet of paper, he sees what he is supposed to do and what he's supposed to ask the learners to do. There are two different levels.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Monsieur Mokhtar.
In fact, if you allow me, Lilia and Mukhtar, in fact, maybe this quiz, the question that Mukhtar has given, I think it was the most intelligent question because it addresses the core objective of this workshop as it's announced by its title, because it's the real element that makes the scenario shareable. It's the thing that tells the other user how he or she would use the scenario. So I thank you very much. I think if there is a giveaway or something that we have to retain out of the presentation, maybe this quiz and its answer. And I would also like to highlight what Professor Ben Henda said about this is the way, he said this is the way we have thought it in our project, but I think we can continue to think how we can better share the scenarios. I think this is an important question and problem if we would like really to develop scenarios and or content for this problem. Thank you very much. I wanted just to give this comment, and I thank you very much, Mokhtar and Lilia, for a wonderful presentation.
It's very important to highlight what you said at the end. I mean, if you go to internet and you search on Google educational scenarios, you will find a lot of varieties of templates, of forms, and different kinds of ones. There is not one model for that. So as I said, it is the way how we agreed to write scenarios in our project.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. Thank you, Ghada, for this workshop. And I think if there are no questions, we can finish this workshop. And thank you very much, my dear friend Mokhtar, for your nice presentation, your nice project.
Thanks for you. Thanks for this invitation, and I hope the best for all of you.
Thank you. So,
okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye then. Thank you very much.